you ever wondered what it's like to officiate on an NFL field? Have you ever wanted to hear from somebody about their perspective of some of the biggest games, the biggest plays in NFL history? Well, I'm Hank Tatum, and here on the WSAV Daily Huddle, we spoke to Roy Ellison, a longtime NFL umpire, about his experiences. After playing football at Savannah State, Mr. Ellison made his transition to being an official starting in the NFL back in 2003, and since then, he has officiated 4 Super Bowls. Hear from him and all of his perspective, what it takes to become an NFL official, and some of his memories of those big plays like the Philly Special and the James Harrison Pick 6. All right, today we are joined by NFL umpire Mr. Roy Ellison, a former graduate of Savannah State and former football player. Mr. Ellison, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Doing great, huh?
Well, thanks so much for your time. Obviously, you just wrapped up the 2025-2026 NFL season, and you got to cap it off with your 4th Super Bowl appearance as an official. Walk me through that experience just about a month ago in Santa Clara and leading up to that game. What was that like for you?
It was a great event. It was a great opportunity. Super Bowls usually are. Super Bowls normally are the candle on the cake. It's not the icing, it's the candle. That's the last thing on that cake that you put to it on a successful season. So whenever we get our Super Bowl assignments, it's a great achievement for us, for our families, for our officiating colleagues, because we all support one another in our Super Bowl assignments.
And there's so much that goes into the Super Bowl. It's so much more than just the game. It's all the festivities leading up to that. Do you get to experience anything extra special, or is it just another game for you?
Basically, it's just another game for us. When it comes down to the Super Bowl, we're probably involved in a few more activities than we're normally used to being involved in. And that can be somewhat of a distraction. The dinners, uh, I guess the meetings, we go to pregame preparation before Super Bowl. That entire coin toss ceremony is actually practice, where you stand, where you move. All of that stuff is actually scripted, and you have to practice that stuff. But other than that, as far as festivities like parties and the all that stuff, that hoopla that goes around it, we're not allowed to participate in it.
Okay, gotcha. And, this isn't your first rodeo. This was your 4th Super Bowl, and I'm excited to talk about some of those prior ones a little bit later. But what were the emotions like for you on that night, walking out onto the field again?
It's great walking out under the lights. It's something that you're normally not accustomed to uh, on that large of a scale. The sights around the field, the celebrities around the field, everybody wants to view that Super Bowl. Everybody wants to participate in it. Everybody wants to be a part of it. And there's a lot of emotion. You can feel the electricity in the air. And you have to work at keeping yourself calm. And you have to keep reminding yourself this is just another football game as far as your job go, in order to stay focused, in order to stay grounded.
Gotcha. And you talked a little bit about the selection process. What is that like for who gets to go officiate the Super Bowl, and when do you find out?
We find out right before the championship game assignment. So championship game assignments come out. Those guys get their assignment, and then we're followed up right behind them almost instantaneously. And that's when we find out we're working the Super Bowl. So it kind of uh, puts emphasis on that championship weekend, because now at that time you're watching the championship games when otherwise you may not watch that game. But if you know that I'm going to have the Super Bowl matchup coming, you actually start your scouting process at that time. You know, you got the final 4 teams that are left in the season, and part of that scouting that really begins, you sit there and you watch those championship games. You start getting some idea what are you going to be faced with coming into that Super Bowl. And that's when you start your scouting, you start your planning, and you get an idea what type of team you're going to be dealing with, whether it's going to be a run-centric team or it's going to be a pass-happy team.
That's fascinating. And I want to get to that scouting a little bit in your game preparation, but let's go back to the very start. You first officiated an NFL game back in 2003. How did you get there? When did you get your start as an official?
I started back in 1996, and most officials, not all of us, but most of us started our careers at the Pop Warner level. So here we are, we're officiating small kids, and that's where we first get our toe wet. That's where we get a taste of it, and some guys decide they're going to stay at the lower level. Some guys have that hunger to just keep moving up, and as you leave Pop Warner, you go into high school, and at the time when I came along, we still had junior high football. So you had junior high football, high school football. You get your taste of that type of football, and next thing you know, you got a desire to want to officiate higher and see can your skill set match with the next level. Mainly, it's the speed and the sophistication of the offenses. And what you do is now you go to small college football, and that's how I ended up in the SIAC, which was the conference that Savannah State was involved in at the time. So I was able to officiate all the teams in the SIAC except for Savannah State. And from Savannah State, I ended up going to the MEAC conference. And from the MEAC, I ended up at Conference USA. Once I reached Conference USA, I was at Division I level. At that time, we didn't have Power Five, Power Four football. We didn't have a group of five, group of six, stuff like that. It was Division I football. And at that time, the NFL scouts officials in the same manner in which they scout players. So they
Wow.
have people around the country who are looking for officials who they see are working at a high level. And then they would take you from that point and they would put you into the spring leagues, the USFL, XFL, arena football. At the time, we had NFL Europe. And once you made it to NFL Europe, you were pretty much in an elite class at that time because you were the guys who were the Division I officials who they had recognized as being the top guys. And we actually would go to Europe and work the NFL Europe League and hone our skills, and we would get direct one-on-one coaching on NFL mechanics.
Is a really cool journey that you just kind of detailed and laid out for us.
Yeah.
And not all officials have the same roles; they're not made the same. Being an umpire, which is what you've done now for your entire career, can you explain what it is that separates an umpire from maybe a different official for fans that might not be aware?
Yeah, we have in NFL we have seven officials on the field. In NCAA, you have eight officials on the field. The only difference is the guy that's in the middle of the field in NCAA, that umpire that sits in the middle of the field. When I first came in the NFL, that was where that position was aligned. So I started out in the middle of the field behind the defense, but eventually we moved the umpire from the defensive side of the ball to the offensive side of the ball. Now, with those seven officials or those seven positions identified, all positions do not watch the same action. Uh, if you're doing your job properly, you do not watch the game during the game. You only watch the guys who you're responsible for. You have to watch your area, your zone, and anybody who's in that zone or comes in or goes out of that zone. So a lot of time when fans see us come together on the field in a conference, a lot of time the reason why we're coming together is because we're discussing the play. And a lot of time we have to be able to put together, grab a little bit from one guy's position, another guy's position, and we able to paint the picture within that huddle and give us an idea of whether the foul we're about to call or whether the foul we're about to pick up or wipe out, whether it be valid for us to do so. Uh, that's how we get graded. We get graded on managing our area of the game. And you become a subject matter expert at your position. Like in my position, the umpire is responsible for the offensive lineman and some of the defensive linemen that encounters those offensive linemen. So secondarily, we may pick up the quarterback, we may pick up the running back, we may pick up a tight end or a slot receiver coming into our area, but for the most part, our number one priority are those linemen up front.
Very cool, very cool. And I want to talk a little bit more now about your Super Bowl history. You've gotten to work some really fascinating Super Bowls,
Yeah.
starting in 2009, which was your first. I just want to talk about your position and what you saw. Obviously, that was the game that the Steelers beat the Cardinals late in that game, but there's two memorable plays that stick out to me. It's the James Harrison pick six, one of
Yes.
the most memorable highlights of all time in the Super Bowl, and then the Santonio Holmes touchdown to win the game. From
Yes.
your position on the field, what do you remember about seeing those two plays unfold?
Man, it was crazy because that first play happened, the interception by James Harrison. Uh, that first play happened right before halftime. And again, I was working on the defensive side of the ball at that time. Due to our scouting that
Hmm.
we do of teams and players, I had a sense that this ball was getting ready to get intercepted because we prefer to work on our toes. The good officials hone their skills so that they can work on their toes and not on their heels. So you want to be prepared for something that's about to happen and not be surprised by something that just happened. So when Kurt Warner came up and threw that ball and Harrison stepped over in front of that receiver and picked it off and took off, what was it, 100 and what was it, 101 yards or something like that?
I
One of the
believe so. Yeah.
yeah, one of the longest returns. Now you got to flip your whole mentality because before being on the defensive side of the ball, you would have to turn and follow that play in that manner. But now we were running in a different direction. So now you're going downfield and we're covering that field all the way down to the goal line. And that was one of the most exciting plays I had ever seen, you know?
Yeah, and that was, I mean, it's one of the best Super Bowl plays of all time. I'm sure it's a long run for you to have to get all the way down the
Yes.
field with those guys.
Yes.
A similar position for you, like, what about that touchdown there to end the game, or late in the game at least?
In that in on that particular play, umpires are always taught that once we clear our action up at the front of the offensive line up front, when the pass comes out, we immediately drop our responsibility up front and we turn with the pass. So when we turn with those passes, now we assist the downfield officials with making a call as to whether a pass was complete or incomplete. And I remember when that ball went up in the air, and because it was a floater, I don't have to turn as quick. I can take a breath and then turn. And when I turn and I watched that play, I was just like everybody else. You know, you run downfield and you go straight to that official. He makes that call, and you know this call is going to be challenged. It's the Super Bowl. Um,
Right.
it's going to be reviewed, and you're standing there with everybody else. But in the immediate moment, you're just like any other player, any other fan, any other guy who's out there on that sideline, and you're looking, and you're like, wow, that was
Yeah.
one heck of a catch.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Before we get
Yes.
to one more moment, and I'm sure it's a moment that you know is coming. I do want to ask about the scouting process for you. Like, you're watching these teams and these games before your assignment. What is it that you're looking for?
We're looking for, we're looking for, in general, we want to get an idea of who repeat offenders are
Okay.
because you can easily say that you do not target a player,
Right.
but if you're honest with yourself, you do have to watch in certain area a little closer if you know
Okay.
that you got a player in that area
So you're
who's
watching for
getting more fouls.
tendencies, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
tendency.
Okay.
And we watch during the week, we break film down and we watch offensive formations, we watch defensive formations, we watch how the offense motion in and out of a play and how the defense reacts to that same type of motion
Gotcha. Very, very
because
cool.
it helps us get in position. Our position is a strength of angles,
Yeah.
and our angle can be greatly amplified even if we just take a half a step to the left or take one step back or decide that maybe I can see this better if I go 1 yard closer. It only takes slight body movement in order for you to get the best angle that you can get on a play. And if you scouted your team ahead of time, you're able to put yourself in a better position in order to see that angle that you're looking for.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So back to the Super Bowls here. 2009 is your first, and you see, this crazy play made by James Harrison, and then the end of the game with the catch there. And you have to wait until 2018 until your next Super Bowl.
Yes.
And in that game, of course, one of the most memorable plays maybe in Super Bowl history. It wins the Eagles the Super Bowl over the Patriots, and that is the Philly special.
Yes.
You're right there on that field. What do you remember about that play?
That one was amazing as well. On that particular play, we had an idea that that play was going to be ran.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had an idea because we always noticed that uh, on that particular play, and not with just that team, but with similar teams running those similar offenses, we pay attention whenever a quarterback flips a ball and that play action takes that entire offense to one side of the field.
Hmm.
We tend to watch the actions of the quarterback because he can remain an eligible receiver. And if you get a quarterback who carries out his fakes very well, all guys don't carry out fakes very well, whether it's a quarterback or running back, tight end or receiver. But if you're paying attention and you dig deep into it deep enough, you can make a determination that it's quite possibly they may throw back to this guy because he's running this fake very hard. So they continue to run that play to either side of the field, and you're setting that defense up to bite on it, and then you're making that backside defender a little lazy, a little complacent, over exuberant, and he decides I can get over there and make that play. Now you got that other side of the field open. So we had some idea that they may throw back to the other side of the field.
At that time, were you still in the defensive backfield, or were you behind the offense at that point?
I was on the offensive backfield at that time. So
So
now I'm
this
back in the
play,
backfield with the referee. Yeah.
yeah, so this play unfolds right in front of you where Trey Burton gets the pitch and then throws it off to Nick Foles.
Yes.
What is that like to be able to see some of these plays set up just a few yards away from you as you're kind of looking at them?
In your first train of thought is uh, growing up playing football, being involved in football all my life in sports. We kind of look at each other and we give ourselves a little smirk because it's like, where else would you want to be? You
Right.
know, we're sitting here, we're in the middle of a football field with the best athletes in the world, and you're looking at guys who perform at the highest level that you can possibly perform. And as a fan, as an official, you have the best seat in the house. Only thing is, they ask you to do one thing while you're standing there. They ask you to officiate that game. You know,
Can't
so
forget about that one.
yeah, don't forget about that part, right?
Yeah. Wow. That is super cool. I've got just a few more questions for you. Long career. You've now done 4 Super Bowls, most recently this past one between the Seahawks and the Patriots. You've even officiated a Pro Bowl. Is there anything in your career that you would like to accomplish that maybe hasn't happened yet before you retire?
Um, I have a few things that I do want to accomplish. Some of them I can talk about, some of them
Okay.
I can't talk about,
All
but
right.
right now I'm the senior guy in the umpire room as far as years of service goes.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
so I'm looked upon in that room not only to work my position and prepare myself for the game, but I mentor guys in that room a lot as well. So I take a lot of pride, a lot of happiness when I'm watching other people's games and I see them starting to put it together, and I see that light bulb starting to turn on in their head, and they're becoming successful at what they do. I take as much joy in their success as I take in my own. So there's some things I want to do along that line as I get further into my career. Uh, I don't have that many years left at this time. I'm still trying to decide when that day is going to be. At what point when I'll say, you know what, I've pretty much garnered all that I can garner.
Mhm.
But I do know that I want to stay involved in football. I want to keep teaching football. As of right now, I still teach football. I work with the Pac-12 conference as their supervisor of their umpire and the center judge room. I work with a lot of more other conferences like the MEAC, SIAC, where I contribute to their staff as well with film study, showing guys how to break down plays, watching film with their guys. So it's something that I probably will pursue later on after my career to stay involved in football.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
And obviously, we've talked so much about being on the field and you're officiating. What does it look like for you, maybe during the season or even the off season when you're not officiating? Like, what does that week leading up to a game look like for you?
Well, amazingly, um, we travel on Saturdays if we have a Sunday game. So I'm gonna give you a
Wow.
typical rundown
Yeah.
on how a week goes. So if we got a typical Sunday game, we're traveling Saturday morning. We're up early, 6 o'clock. We're at the airport. On average, you probably got a 6, 7 o'clock flight trying to get into that game city because we're required to be there 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock before Sunday. And once we get into that game city, now we sit down as a crew, and if you can imagine, 7 individuals have been performing the task of scouting a game position players all week. Now you come together in a meeting and we put all this together and we present it as a crew to one another. And now it gives us an idea, a better idea of what we're faced with the following day. We work a game on Sunday. Uh, you may have a 1 o'clock game, 4 o'clock game. A lot of time you can get out of there. It's not a second night stay. We're right back at the airport. They rush us out the stadiums. We normally have police escort back to the airport. They drop us off. Most fans kind of pick up on who we are depending on how fast we come running into that airport and
Okay.
get into that
Yeah.
security line. And then we shoot
Yeah.
off to our gates. Now you get on the plane and you immediately start breaking down your game film from that particular game that you just watched. And one of the most amazing things is when we get on the bus, that's when we start our game reports because that's the last time we're together face to face where we have to complete the accuracy of our game reports. And the crazy thing is that a lot of people are surprised by, or when our families used to can travel on that bus with us, one of the first questions that was asked and still is today when we get on the bus, it never fails. Somebody always asks, what was the score of the game? And the people on the bus with you, whether it's security, whether it's league, office personnel, your family members, they kind of turn around with this look on their face and say, you guys just worked the game. How can you not know the score of the game? And if you're doing your job, you don't know the score of that game
Wow.
unless somebody grabs it as you run off the field.
Right.
We know that game's over because one sideline is celebrating and the other sideline is walking off with their head down. Now, we get home about 1, 2 in the morning. For me, some guys have to drive in. They may have a 3, 4 hour drive. After that, they may get home Monday morning, grab another hotel at the location where they're at, and then get up and drive that Monday morning just to get back to our regular jobs. On Monday, we complete our film review. On Tuesdays, we start our film review with the crew. And now the crew gets together and share plays from that previous game, or you get together and you have a doc sheet, a spreadsheet, whatever, and you send it out. And now you guys look at these plays individually, and we start talking about how we can complete better coverage of that play. Where did we fail in that play? What was successful about it? So now on Tuesday afternoons, we start receiving our grades back
Hmm.
from the league office. Each player is graded. So on average, we got 160 plays per game. Each play is graded, and you get a grade for each play. So that's how from week to week they keep a running total on
Yeah.
how well we're doing on those plays. And at the end of the year, you got a cumulative score, and that's how you determine where you're ranked, who has the least amount of negative grades, who has the positive grades, and that determines postseason playoff positioning. Now, Tuesday is our initial time to respond to these grades.
Okay.
That goes back to the league office. Wednesday, league office has their final recap of that game, and they determine whether you worked that play correct or whether you did not. Once they
Gotcha.
get your responses, we get our grades back on Wednesday afternoon. Thursday is when we start working on our paperwork, and we start some minor scouting on teams,
Hmm.
and we get that part in and out. Friday is usually our downtime,
Okay.
when you kind of get a few hours to kind of relax
Yeah.
and get ready for the next game. You're putting last week's game away, and at the same time, you're still sitting around relaxing, but you're still looking at a few plays of your upcoming game and
Right.
getting yourself ready for the next week's game.
Wow. That is so in depth. Really cool for you to lay out. I appreciate that.
So when you hear all the dialogue about why aren't these guys full-time, they're only part-time guys, in
Hmm.
our mind, we're not part-time guys, because we work that job continuously every day of the week. And if you do not work that job continuously every day of the week, if you do not have that type of mindset, you will not last.
That's interesting perspective because, of course, every season it's always talked about how officials are not full time.
Right.
That's really cool perspective to hear you say that you have to be full time to do this. My last question for you before we wrap up here. Are you more, having wrapped up about 3 weeks ago in that Super Bowl, are you more excited for the upcoming off season, or are you looking to get back on the field in 2026?
I'm looking to get back in on the field. Once that game is over, everything's behind you. You are only as good as your last play. So once that game is over, once that play is over, you have to be able to compartmentalize that last play that you had, and whether you work that play correctly or not, you got to be able to
Hmm.
put it away, and you got to be able to move forward. And if you're not able to do so, it's hard for you to work a new play when you're still trying to process a previous play. You can't do both of them at one time.
Right.
You got to put all of your attention, all your concentration on the current play in front of you. And you have a sense as to when you make a mistake on the field. Officials know right away whether we made a mistake, whether we botched a play, whether we committed our mechanics incorrectly, whether we got a missed penalty enforcement. We know before anyone else know,
Hmm.
and everything else pertaining to that is normally identified during the week when the games are scrubbed by the graders in
Gotcha.
the league front office.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Ellison, thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
today. Greatly appreciated your insight, and
Yeah.
best of luck to you as you move forward and get into 2026.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Again, a big thank you to Mr. Roy Ellison for joining the show to share his insight and perspective for everything that it takes to become an NFL official and sharing some of his biggest memories from his long career. If you liked that interview, you'll love more content just like it on the WSAV Daily Huddle, a part of the WSAV Plus original podcast. It's a daily sports show talking about football, basketball, everything in between, from the low country and coastal empire all the way to the biggest news and notes of the national sports scene. I'm Hank Tatum, host of the WSAV Daily Huddle, and we hope to see you next time